Good morning, guys. All right, Jeremy Knauff here with another episode of the Public Relations Declassified live stream. And we're going to do something a little bit different today. It's not going to be like the typical kind of monologue where I'm teaching a specific topic or series of topics. What we're going to do today is we're actually going to answer some of our audience questions. So I've had several people submit questions as video files. And if you guys want to do this in the future, any of you guys who have any specific PR, branding, or marketing questions, what you can do is you can actually shoot a video. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can just do it with your phone and ask your question, and you'll get a better sense for kind of how this works once we start pulling up some of these videos. But if you guys want to have me answer any of your questions, just make one of these quick videos, keep it under a minute, and send them to me. And we're going to start making this a recurring aspect of Public Relations Declassified. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Our first question is going to be from Amanda Webster.
Hey guys, so my question would be, after you get a PR piece, whether it's a video, a podcast, an article, whatever it is, after the PR post, whenever it gets out, what is the best way, short-term and long-term strategy to utilize it to get the best ROI?
All right, so that's a great question. And this is something that I see a lot of people get wrong. And for what it's worth, Amanda is actually great at that because she handles this really well. Obviously, there's always room in everything that everyone does for improvement. But here's what you do. All right, so let me first talk about what most people do when they get featured in the media. So they'll land a great feature. This piece of publicity presents them as an authority, really demonstrates their expertise. And they'll post it once. You know, you might see them post a link to the article or post the TV segment as a video clip. And then that's the end of it. They don't do anything else with it after that. And that's a huge missed opportunity because the Pareto principle applies here in a very big way. And what I mean by that is you're all familiar with the Pareto principle, also called the 80-20 rule, where 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. And that applies to public relations because when that piece goes live, and even when you first share it, that's going to give you maybe 20% of the results you're going to get out of this piece. It's what you do with it after that that has the outsized impact. So, you know, of course, go and share it when it first comes out. That's great. Do that. But then also keep in mind, for a lot of these topics, they are what I call evergreen content, right? It's something that's relevant ongoing. It's not something that, you know, just applies right now. There are going to be some cases where it is a time sensitive thing. And then after a period of time, it's no longer relevant. That's fine. That's not going to be the case with the vast majority of the publicity that you earn. So first of all, aside from sharing it that first time, you also can reshare it from time to time. Now, you don't want to be sharing this every day or even every week, probably not even every month, to be honest with you. But keep it in your library of content that you can reshare from time to time. The other thing you can do with it is you can go and create additional content around that. So take a few of the great quotes that you had in that feature and turn them into little quote graphics, right? Like Jeremy's PR PSA is a good example of this. Like I take a little nugget of wisdom and I put it in that graphic that gets shared along with each episode I do of Public Relations Declassified. But then I also will share those randomly from time to time. You could do that same thing by building a template that, you know, is really well designed. It's got your branding, and you basically put one of your quotes from this media feature into several of these graphics, right? And what happens is you can probably pull 3 to maybe half a dozen, maybe in a very large article, maybe a dozen different quotes that you said in there. Those can all now be really powerful, punchy little graphic type content that you can share and share and share indefinitely. And the more of these that you have, the more often you can use them because you can mix it up, right? Not everyone's going to see all of your content all of the time. So even if you reshare things, people aren't going to probably even remember that you ever shared it before. So the quote graphics are one example of creating additional content from this. The other thing you can do is you can go onto your website and publish an article about the topic. And in this case, You want to highlight the fact that you were featured in this particular media outlet, throw a link back to that outlet. And now in an article on your own website, you have the ability to go super deep. You can say everything you didn't get to say in that original piece of publicity. You can really go deeper into the topic itself. You can branch off into other tangents. You can talk about how things are going to play out for your industry, or the type of people that you serve. How does this particular thing impact them, and go deeper into that. Like, there's basically an unlimited number of directions you can go with this, but because you're now talking about it on your own website, you can go far deeper than you could in any piece of publicity. Something else that you can do is you can turn around and make a video about that topic. So you've already addressed it in that piece of publicity. You can now go out and create a video, same way that we did with the article. You can go deeper, you can go tangential, you could talk about the impact, you could talk about all these other things that you didn't have a chance to say in that piece of publicity. Now, there's a lot of different ways to cut this up. You've got, you make that as a full video. You can also chop it up into a whole bunch of shorts, and then you basically treat those shorts kind of like the quote graphics that we talked about earlier. And by the way, guys, shorts are a great way to build your audience, right? If you're posting shorts on YouTube, or you can also post them as reels on Facebook and Instagram. You can post them on TikTok, as much as I hate TikTok with a fiery passion. All of these are great platforms that drive a ton of reach, particularly when it comes to shorts or reels. So you make the big long video, but then chop it up into smaller content as well. Now, keep in mind, all of this content that we're creating, we want to highlight the fact that this particular piece of content came from this media feature. What that's doing is that's reinforcing your authority status, because these people at the media outlet, they came to you to seek your input because you are an expert. So there's a million ways you can create a ton of content. And then in that content, you mention, that particular media feature, and you take it in whatever direction you want. The reality is, with a single piece of publicity, you should pretty easily be able to create at least a dozen, probably a few dozen individual pieces of content that can be incredibly powerful. And then as you develop a few different pieces of publicity, you've now got this library of content that you can constantly share, which is going to keep you in front of your audience. It's going to further demonstrate your authority status, and it's going to train the algorithms that power social media to show your content to more people. So this is a step that most people don't do. And it's something that if you do this, it's going to put you light years ahead of your competitors. All right, so we're going to roll to our next question, which is from Anthony Simone.
Hey, Jeremy, Anthony Simone here. I've got a quick question for you, actually a couple regarding PR. The first one is, I've heard over the years that any PR is good PR. Now, I don't know how I feel about that, because I've seen some crazy things happen. People be in positions that I definitely wouldn't want to be in. But anyway, being in the public eye on those things, I don't think is, well, I'll keep my opinion to myself, but I don't think it's always a good thing. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. And then secondly, what do you feel, or what do you think the difference is between going out and buying PR versus, let's say, for lack of a better phrase, earning PR? What are the differences there? What should we look out for? And then lastly, there's an organization, I can't remember their name off the top of my head. I don't think I'm going to butcher their name, but maybe it's a Forbes Council. What's your opinion of them? And just how does that all fit into this, going out and getting PR and good PR in a relatively short period of time? Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Another great question. And man, I definitely have thoughts on this. All right. So first of all, we'll address the buying publicity question. And anyone who's watched any of my content for any period of time knows that I'm very much opposed to that. And there's a variety of reasons. One of them is, first of all, it's not really honest. If you are buying a placement, that's not a legitimate editorial feature, right? So this is basically what we call in the industry a fluff piece, right? They're going to publish whatever just because you're paying a fee. And so the credibility of that is greatly diminished. And in many cases, it can actually hurt you. So journalists know what these bullshit publications are. In fact, by the way, guys, speaking of that, we have a plugin for your Chrome browser. We'll be releasing one for Internet Explorer as well, called Vetted. It's in the Google Chrome store right now. It's a free plugin, and that will actually help you to identify the legit versus the bogus media outlets. So if there's a media outlet that is known for publishing these bullshit articles that are basically just pay to play, or if it's a publication that really has no traffic and doesn't matter, it identifies a lot of these. Obviously, we don't have every publication in the world listed, but we are constantly growing the number of websites that this tool identifies. So if you're not already using that plugin, definitely check it out. It will help you to identify the fake versus the real media outlets. But we want to avoid these fake ones, because what happens is, sure, maybe a lot of your audience, maybe your potential clients do not understand that some of these outlets are fake. But I will tell you who 100% of the time does know that they're fake, and that's journalists. So if you're out here pitching journalists, or you've got somebody pitching on your behalf, and they look you up online, which is what a journalist is going to do before they include you in an article or put you in a TV segment, if they find that you're featured in a bunch of these fake media outlets, it's going to hurt their perception of you. They're going to think less of you. They will see you as less credible, less honest, and that hurts your chances of actually getting featured in the real media outlets. So we want to avoid this. But there's another and maybe even bigger issue, and that's the FTC. We all know it sucks to get on the radar of any of these big TLAs, three-letter agencies that are run by the government. We don't want to get on the FTC's radar, or the SEC, or the IRS, or the DOJ, or any of these. The FTC has been cracking down on what they consider kind of deceptive marketing practices, and buying these fake media features is one of the things that they look for. So if you are out here buying a bunch of fake media features, that's something that they could then come after you. And they really love to crack down on businesses that they feel are operating in a way that's deceptive. Now, maybe not everyone is doing it intentionally to be deceptive, but that's how it's going to be perceived. So I would stay away from any of these fake outlets. Yes, you can certainly get featured there. Yes, it's easy. And yes, it's even usually pretty cheap, but it's not worth it. There's virtually no real upside, but there is a lot of downside. So we want to avoid those like the plague. And then more specifically, Anthony had asked about the Forbes Council. And I've been a big critic of the Forbes Council for a long time for many reasons. One of them is the barrier to entry is next to nothing. Basically, if you are willing to pay whatever the amount is per year, I forget what the fee is. It's a few $1,000s. But if you're willing to pay that fee, then you can write for the Forbes Council, right? So there's basically no barrier to entry. I have seen articles published under the Forbes Council that honestly look like a drunk toddler wrote them. And that's just not a good look. So the credibility of Forbes Council in general is pretty low. There's a couple of other problems too. So first of all, this falls under that pay-to-play kind of bullshit model. And journalists don't like that. They kind of feel like it's infringing on their model, on their industry. And so they don't like it. They also feel, like I said before, that if you're there, then you're probably not very credible. So there is that. But there's another aspect to this that a lot of people don't know about, and that is that the Forbes Council is not actually Forbes. So the Forbes Council is a kind of isolated island within the Forbes website. It's not indexed by Google. Google can't see the content there, so unless they've changed that recently. But Google can't see the content. It's not promoted through the main site. The only way that people get to these articles is if you share them. So nobody even sees them. So first of all, you're not getting any real reach, no real exposure. We talked about the credibility issue, so you're not getting any real authority from being there. And then if you stop paying at some point, all the articles that you've contributed there go away. So if somebody goes to your profile or they even follow a link specifically to one of your articles, it's going to go nowhere. It's going to go to a page basically that becomes a landing page for them to sell other people on becoming members of the Forbes Council. And that's just kind of a bad look for you, because somebody's going there looking for your article. Maybe they clicked on a link that you shared on social or an old email or something like that. And they come there and now it's just this landing page for this bullshit program. So that, further hurts your credibility in the long term, and those don't go away. I was actually looking at the Forbes Council profile for somebody I know who tries to present themselves as a PR firm. And basically there it is for life. Now that landing page that's selling the Forbes Council is showing up in the search results for that person's name for the rest of his life. So not a good look. There's another really interesting facet to this, and that is that because the Forbes Council is not actually part of Forbes, it's actually a third-party company, they have a non-compete agreement in place with Forbes. So if at any point you have ever written for the Forbes Council, you can now never actually write for the real Forbes, right? So if you wanted to pitch them for you to become a non-paying contributor, right, under the legitimate side of the Forbes media outlet, you can't do that if you've ever contributed under the Forbes Council. So it's just not a good look. You want to stay away from that. And there's other publications that do something similar. I know Entrepreneur has one, Fast Company, I think Inc. does as well. They've all got programs like this, and they all have the same general issues. I used to write for Entrepreneur, and I wrote for them before they had their program. And then later they rolled me into that program. And I was contributing, I think I was contributing like an article a quarter. And they said, well, if you want to do more articles, become a paying member of this program. And then you can do, we'll let you do one article a month. Well, I did that for a while. And then at one point my card had expired and it didn't rebill. And then all of my content that I've been contributing to Entrepreneur Magazine over the years disappeared, right? So this is just it's a bad move all the way around. Paying for publicity is always bad. And then like I said, I've just never seen a case where any of these programs like the Forbes Council or Entrepreneurs, I think they call it the Entrepreneur Leadership Network. There's a few different programs like this. I see a lot of downside. I don't see a ton of upside to any of them at this point. When Entrepreneur started theirs, at first it was legit, right? There was a really high editorial standard. And in fact, like I said, when I first started, I was not paying anything. I was just a regular Entrepreneur contributor. And then they rolled me into that program once they launched it. So I don't see upside there. So stay away from these kind of things. There's not a lot of benefit to them, in my opinion. So that's my answer on that. All right. And we're going to go ahead and roll into our next question. I was not sure how many questions we were going to get through today. So we're kind of playing this by ear. What I'm going to do today is we'll just answer 3 of these questions. That'll keep us in our normal, 20 minutes or so, 20, 30 minutes range. If you guys want me to do a longer episode with these questions, just let me know. We've got a ton of questions we can work with here. So, and of course, people are always submitting new questions as well. So if you guys want to see longer versions of this Q&A kind of approach, just let me know. We've got plenty of content to do that with. But for today, we're just going to go with 3. So we stay in our normal time range here. All right. So our next question up is going to be from Trish Leto.
Hey, Jeremy, I got a question for you. My name is Trish Leto. I've been a digital marketer for over 10 years, and I recently grew my TikTok channel to over 20,000 followers in just over 4 months. From a psychological perspective, why is this whole Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson relationship taking off like wildfire? I'd love to get your take.
All right. Great question. And this question is actually bigger than what it first sounded like. She's talking about a specific topic that was trending for a bit, but the bigger issue here is trending topics in general. So this is something I talk about a lot. You want to leverage these trending topics in your content because it does create a ton of exposure for you. It does create reach with audiences that you weren't previously reaching. So I love the idea of leaning into any of the trending topics. In this case, Trish was asking, why that one was blowing up so much. Well, that particular case, it blew up because people had a few different mindsets on it. In some cases, they kind of saw something that they resonated with in their own life like that. In other cases, it may be because they're super supportive of the thing that's happening, or it may be because they're super against it. There's a lot of different reasons behind why a topic trends. But what we want to always do is we want to look at, take a look at that specific topic and then analyze, we don't want to just go off the fact that it is trending, right? That in and of itself doesn't mean shit. There was a really nasty example of doing this wrong. Man, this was, I think, back around 2012 during the Casey Anthony trial, where the lady who had killed her kid. And I can't remember what the hashtag was, but there was a hashtag related to that case that was trending. And Entenmann's, the snack company, right? You guys have all seen their donuts, I'm sure. They leaned in on one of those hashtags, not knowing what it was actually about. And oh my God, they got fucking dominated in the comments. They were just getting dragged left and right on social media, on every platform, because they jumped into a trending topic that they didn't actually know what it was about. And in that context, it was a pretty bad look. So when we are looking at a trending topic, we have to figure out, why is it trending? That's the first step, right? You don't want to step into some bullshit that's trending for a bad reason and leverage that in a way that, without context looks bad for you. But then you also want to look at, how does the fact that this is trending, how does it impact my audience or my potential clients? But then B, how do they feel about it and why do they care about it? So, with the example that Trish mentioned, let me think of some ways that this could have played out with brands. So, if you had brands in the health and beauty space, there could have been a lot of opportunities to lean in on that, because the reasons that particular topic was trending tend to resonate with the people who are, into the health and wellness and the anti-aging and all of that stuff, right? Also, relationship coaches would be a good example of somebody that can jump on that, because that resonates with who their audience is. So we want to look at the topic itself. We want to analyze why it's trending. And look, guys, I cannot stress this enough. Don't take it at surface level. Spend some time digging deep into the comments, right? Look at the replies. Look at how people are talking about that trending topic. And that's going to give you a lot more insight than looking at, the topic itself, whatever companies or people are involved. Look at them, no question. But go get a sense of what the public thinks about this before you lean into a topic, because you have to really understand not only why it's trending, but also how people feel about that, and then how that connects with your audience. Your audience might be pro that thing. They might be anti that thing. They might not have an opinion on that thing. It depends on the situation. But we want to look deep into that and really make sure that we understand the topic, and that will help you avoid making some big faux pas that's going to end up hurting you and hurting your brand. It's also important to note, don't stretch too far, right? This is not yoga class. You want to find a trending topic that is legitimately relevant to you and your audience. And there's a lot of things you can do to make seemingly irrelevant topics relevant to your audience, but it's a very fine line to balance. This is something I've done a lot with some of the current trending things throughout the last several years. I did a lot with the Blake Lively PR crisis, Google's PR crisis, WordPress's PR crisis. Like, I've got all these different things that the company or the brands or the people involved don't seem to have anything to do with public relations, but I unpacked it from a PR angle, and that made a lot of sense, and it drove a ton of impressions and put me in front of a lot of new people that had never previously heard of me. So we can be kind of tangential, but just be careful not to take it too far. Okay, guys. So that puts us at 3 questions. We're at about 25 minutes here today. So we will call that a wrap for our Q&A for today. let me know in the comments if you guys would prefer me to keep these at our normal 20, 30 minute range, or if for the Q&A ones, if you want me to go a little bit longer and include a few more questions. If we've got 3 questions knocked out right now in about 25 minutes, then in an hour, we should be able to do at least 6. So do you guys want to keep doing this at the 20, 30 minutes, or do you guys want to do the Q&As at 60 minutes or so? Let me know in the comments, and I'll keep that in mind for the next segment of this where we do Q&A. All right, so that being said, we are going to jump into Jeremy's PR PSA for today, and that is that attacking critics doesn't vindicate you. It makes you look insecure and unstable, and that validates the criticism of your brand. Now, there's a fun little story that's tied to this, and that was I posted something last night about a guy who was basically spamming one of my friends' Facebook ads promoting his own company, promoting his own service, which is frankly pretty sleazy. This guy then completely lost his shit, fell apart. He comes over here to my post talking about that. And he says, let's see, my camera's kind of in the way here. Let me see if I can blow this screen up a little bit. There we go. Oh, come on, man. My window is not quite cooperating. All right. Are you serious? I don't even know you. Damage to my own brand? I love how people I don't know speak on me like they know everything. My business rendered speaks for itself. You're a joke. Quit girl fan paging me. No idea what girl fan paging is, but guy was a little bit unhinged. I said something back to him, and then he comes out here crying about, all this nonsense, basically attacking me, attacking my appearance, my credibility, this, that, and the other thing, right? Look, the reality is, if you're called out for something that you've done wrong, like just you take accountability for that and you fix the problem. You don't attack the people who called it out, right? So obviously, I'm up here talking about a PR blunder. You made a PR blunder. In what world do you think that attacking me makes you look any better? If you guys want to see that thread, that interaction, it's one of the more recent posts on my Facebook profile. Feel free to go check that out. This Randy guy is quite interesting and completely unhinged. Even made a few comments and then blocked me, so I couldn't reply. So quite an amusing situation, but it is an example of exactly how not to handle a PR mistake, right? When you make a mistake, you don't double down and attack people who are criticizing you. If there's a legitimate criticism, in which case this was a very legitimate criticism, attacking the people only makes you look stupid and insecure. Because if you can't see that posting, promotional shit for your own company on someone else's ads, if you can't understand that makes you look bad, then frankly, you're not smart enough to be in business, and you probably won't be in business very long. So that's my PR PSA for the day. Look, it's easy when you feel attacked to kind of lash out and, get a little emotional. And that's why I always say, don't respond to a PR crisis or a PR blunder, even if it hasn't quite reached PR crisis level yet. Don't respond emotionally, right? Be logical, evaluate the situation, look at what's going on, and determine what your best course of action is. Because if you start acting like an absolute maniac, it just makes you look worse. And I see people do this very often because they don't have, they don't have the experience in going through something like that. They're not used to being criticized. But also, there's a lack of emotional maturity there. So this is why you have to be so careful how you respond to things when it comes to some kind of a PR mistake, or even if it especially if it rises to the level of a full-blown PR crisis. So that is my PR PSA for today, guys. All right. Hope you found this episode useful. If you did, I would love it if you drop a comment, share this with somebody who you think could benefit from it. And if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube, go ahead and check that out. And then, like I said earlier, guys, let me know on these Q&A format episodes, would you prefer these to be around the 20, 30 minute mark, or do 60 minutes and answer a few more questions? All right, let me know, guys. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.